Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is awareness and how simple awareness can profoundly reshape our behaviors, our interactions personally, socially, environmentally. And I think it's an interesting phenomenon. So, before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And let's now take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. It's great to be here with you this morning and with everybody else who's joining us. Today, we're talking about awareness. And it's very interesting how awareness can shape the context or reshape the context of our experience, of our actions, of the way that we think and feel about things. And so one thing that's coming to mind for me first is this marvelous, marvelous movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's called My Octopus Teacher. And it's a magnificent documentary about the relationship that this man developed with an octopus. And it was so intimate and so moving and personal and just so profoundly loving and connected and kind of otherworldly. And a lot of us have eaten octopus, and I can tell you that I will never, ever eat octopus again, just based on the experience of this movie. It was so profound, and to recognize the intelligence and the just there was an emotional component to it that was so profound that it changed me, and it changed my awareness. I didn't have, previous to that, I hadn't had an awareness of the intelligence of this creature, and I didn't have a connection even to that creature or those creatures as sentient beings. And the awareness itself moved me to shift behavior, right? And I think that good morning, Melissa. Welcome. So good to have you joining us. We're talking about the power of awareness to shape the context of our being and to shift our behavior. So when we have awareness, for instance, that the plastic bottles that we might be drinking water from end up mostly in the ocean or in landfill and stick around for hundreds of years, for me, that shifted me away from using those plastic bottles of water, to be finding other sources of water. And it's the awareness of the extremity of the issue around plastic and plastic pollution that shifted me, or that caused me to shift my behavior. If we recognize that certain patterns of our own behavior are interpreted in ways that are hurtful to other people, it may cause us to shift that behavior. And it's profound to recognize that a simple awareness of something can have such a dramatic impact. And when we it's the impact of education and how what we're exposed to, what we become cognizant of, can be transformative. So Rosalind says insulin resistant or pre-diabetes tests can shift one's diet behaviors to reverse negative markers. But how do we become aware of labels we're assigning things as bad or good? Are these labels a result of my past experience and culture? So you bring up a couple really good points there, Rosalind. So for instance, medical tests can say, you can say, okay, well, here I see this indicator and now I get to make changes because, there's a threat to my well-being or my health. And when I recognize that, then it can cause me to change, or it can give me incitement to change. And then you also bring up, but how do we become aware of labels we're assigning to things as bad or good? And where do those labels come from? So there's also deep indoctrination that we have culturally that good morning, Robin. Welcome. So good to have you joining us this morning. We're talking about awareness and how awareness can shift our experience and our perspective, and the labels. I think we get to question everything, and we have deep indoctrination that is not easy to recognize. So that gets into a very much deeper conversation. What we recognize as bad or good. I mean, we've seen so much of this in the conversation around COVID and around vaccines and around the knowledge that is available to us around that, and what is social indoctrination and what is true and what is not, and how do we navigate those thorny paths, so to speak. So Melissa says, or recycle what you use, do your part. I recycle everything. Beautiful, Melissa. And I want to say that with those plastic bottles and other plastic, it's really important to recognize in single-use plastic and all of that, whether we recycle or not, 90% of it ends up in landfill or in the oceans or in our waterways. Very, very small fraction of what we make the effort to recycle actually gets recycled. And that's the truth of it. So if you investigate that, you'll find out that that's the truth that has been hidden. We get to feel good for recycling, but the fact of the matter is that those things don't get recycled. And so when we have that awareness, then we get to take our behavior to a whole new level and eliminate or reduce as much as possible our use of things that use single-use plastic, like prepared foods so often are in single-use plastic containers that we just recycle, but they never get recycled. And that's the dark truth around this delusion that we have been fed, that if we just do our part and recycle, that'll make a difference, but it doesn't. It's adding it, the way that our consumer patterns of buying fast foods and things that are in single-use containers, it's a delusion that has been promoted to us so that we can not feel bad about our contribution to the growing waste and pollution on the planet. So I don't want to burst your bubble. I know that I hear the intention and the importance that you put on the environment, and I laud you for that. And we get to take it a step further. So like preparing our own food instead of buying stuff that's in disposable containers and packaging and all of that, to minimize the waste that we produce individually or that we promote. So yeah, I think that we've been conditioned to believe that if we just recycle stuff, that you know, that we can continue to use all our fast foods and use all our prepared frozen foods and all of that good stuff. You know, there's lots of wonderful things, but they're in plastic and they're in cardboard, which is using trees. I mean, at least paper gets recycled, or a lot of paper gets recycled, but plastic, not so much. Anyway, so what else in terms of awareness? When we bring awareness, so this is another thing that's been really fascinating for me. I have some clients who are very, very active in the social justice, equality space, and diversity space. And in conversation with them, I have become aware of my lack of awareness, and conversations around inequity that had previously not even been present to me, not even been on my radar, you know, to recognize creating balance and maybe unconscious biases that I have or have evidenced in my behavior that I had been completely oblivious to. And now raising awareness around that it's very, very interesting to be able to recognize what is this space of equity and what does it look like, and how to be cognizant of it, respectful of it, to find my own expression within it. It's fascinating, so it's a new awareness. What then, how do I bring that forward? So it's very, very, very interesting stuff. So Rosalind says, so when exposed to the truth, we get to ask, well, how do we know if we're exposed to the truth? Like, what's the truth? Rosalind says the veil is lifted, no longer operating with illusions filtering what we see, but doing it despite the evidence. Is that called delusion? It could be called delusion. It could be called defiance. It could be called denial. It could be called rejection. It could be called any of those number of things. So for instance, one of the conversations certainly is about smoking being dangerous to your health. And yet knowing that, having that knowledge and information is not necessarily enough to stop people from smoking. So to your point, we get to also look at the existential questions of what is truth and do we have access to it, and how much of it is a social bias and all those other conversations. But we can choose to ignore the cautions, like maybe we know that smoking is bad for your health, and yet we smoke. What's up with that? Are we in denial saying that it's not going to be bad for my health? Or is there some kind of underlying drive that is maybe suicidal on some level, or defiance of death? Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of different dimensions for that for interpreting that kind of behavior. But some people, I remember talking to someone about putting in they were giving lots of group events, and they were giving out water bottles, like the plastic bottles of water. And I suggested maybe putting in a water filter so people could just serve themselves clean water without the plastic waste. And the person was just defiantly like, I like drinking my water out of a plastic bottle, and was saying, well, let the next generation worry about it. It's not my problem. So people have all different kinds of attitudes about things. It's really quite interesting to me. The other thing, just FYI, about drinking out of single-use plastic bottles, these plastic bottles go through all kinds of temperature changes. They have plastic particulates in them from when the lid of the bottle is closed, and from the manufacturing. They off gas, which pollutes the water that's in the bottle. So we may think that we're being all kinds of healthy drinking lots of water from plastic bottles, but it's not necessarily the case. You'd be better off with a water purifier and drinking water from that. And maybe even in some cases, you'd be better off just drinking water from the tap. So check it out, research it. Don't take my word for it. Check into it and see what you find. It's something of a revelation, frankly. So Rosalind says, truth with a capital T. Yeah, I kind of think that we don't have access to the truth with a capital T. that the truth, and this is my own hypothesis, not, it could be, absolutely untrue, but for the most part, I don't know that we have access to truth with a capital T. Rosalind says, I need large neon signs. Other times I can drop into feeling to guide decisions, or disengage to give my mind a break from overthinking. Well, I think you might have hit on something really profound there, Rosalind, because frankly, it's when we drop in to our heart and soul, like to beyond the reactivity, beyond the frantic motions of the mind, when we are able to drop into that place of connection, we can access a deeper knowing. And my hypothesis at this moment is that that may be our closest access to truth with a capital T. That it's when we actually tune in that we can find alignment, that we can find a resonance, that our minds are so conditioned that they often can lead us quite astray and quite distant from at least our personal truths, our personal compass. And if we have a choice between trusting the gut and trusting the mind, for myself, I move more into trusting my gut and my heart. There's a greater wisdom there. The mind, we when we have an active mind, we have the ability to manipulate perception and priority and convince ourselves of things that are not in alignment with our beingness. And I've fallen prey to that in my own life. It's kind of like when something or somebody looks great on paper, but you have this gut feeling that it's not all that, what you're reading. We can look at our politicians, to see on paper, all this looks good, and then the reality doesn't fall into alignment necessarily with what the resume says, so to speak. And our minds might convince us that a decision is a good decision. It makes rational sense, but we might have a deeper knowing that stay away, run, go in the opposite direction. This is not the right place or the right person, for example. So awareness, when we have awareness, for instance, of the traumas or experiences that may be shaping our behavior, we may be able to recognize all options that might not otherwise have been visible to us if we're just prey to the automatic response from whatever that trauma may have been. Awareness of certain patterns that we have. When we're aware of those patterns, we often then have an opportunity to choose and to choose differently. So it's powerful to be cultivating awareness. And one of the ways that we can cultivate awareness is by cultivating presence. You know, we can become more aware of the bigger picture. We can become more aware of the context within which we're operating. We can become more aware of the interrelationship between things, you know, to be looking at how my behavior impacts somebody else's behavior, which impacts somebody else's behavior, you know, impacts their behavior toward me. And we can start to recognize cycles. When we are able to recognize those cycles and we have awareness of it, then we may have an opportunity to exercise choice where we hadn't been able to recognize choice even at all previously. And so presence is a prelude, not always maybe, but presence is a way that we can invoke awareness. Presence is awareness in its essence. So I invite you to look at places in your life that you can bring awareness to and notice what changes, what's available, what shifts. And with that, I'm going to call it a morning. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And Robin says, ditto, I've worked all night and yesterday with no sleep. I'm listening. Oh, well spoken. Thank you so much, Robin. Please get some rest. I hope that everything's okay, that you're working so hard and diligently. And lots and lots of love to you. So good to have you all here. Dido, so great to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us, all of you, and for your authenticity and your willingness to engage in these conversations. And until next time, so much love to you.